Good morning. Welcome everyone to the Utah Board of Water Resources virtual board briefing meeting. Today is October 8th, 2020. It is 10:02 a.m. First off, in accordance with the state legislature, since it recently changed some of its rules regarding COVID-19, we've been asked to read the following executive order, which states, due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the ability of the virus to spread from person to person, Governor Gary Herbert has implemented a number of executive orders directing at controlling spread of the virus by minimizing face-to-face interactions. Public gatherings are strongly discouraged by the CDC, state of Utah, and local health departments since they facilitate face-to-face contact and pose an elevated risk for virus transmission. The Division of Water Resources and the Board of Water Resources Chair have determined that public gathering at board water meetings presents a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who attend and will conduct this meeting using a fully electronic format. The meeting format is authorized by a recent amendment to the Utah Code and executive order by Governor Herbert and will be temporarily used in place of the in-person public meetings that usually occur. Anyone wishing to comment on the meeting's agenda topics or to observe the meeting may do so by logging on to the division's webpage at www.waterright.utah.gov/comments/ and where instructions and links are provided. So with that, welcome again to the virtual meeting. We will start off with a roll call and we'll just go through as we've done in our recent virtual meetings. I will read the area and name if you can indicate if you're present. Bear River, Charles Holmgren.
Mr. Chairman, I am here.
Okay. Weber River, Kyle Stevens.
Present.
Salt Lake, Juliet Tanner.
Present.
Provo River, Wayne Anderson.
Present.
Green River, Randy Crozier.
Present.
Upper Colorado River, Norman Johnson.
Present.
Lower Colorado River, James Lemon. Jim? Is Jim still with us?
It shows his thing working, but I don't hear him.
I don't hear him either. Is he muted?
He's definitely muted.
Jim Lemon, are you present?
His video was working, but it's...
Okay.
Marisa, will you call Jim, please?
And I am Blain Ipson, Severe River, and I am present also. So wait and see if we can work out some technical difficulties with Jim for just a minute.
So Mr. Chairman, do you want me to announce the rest of the division staff?
Yes, if you would do that while we're waiting for Jim, if you would do that, Director Adams, if you'd please
Sorry, Jim.
introduce staff.
Blain, I'm on the phone with him. We're trying to figure it out.
Okay. In the
He
meantime,
might log off and log back on.
in the meantime, we're going to have Todd introduce staff members who are there, and then we'll come back to Jim after you get it figured out.
All right, welcome board. We're glad to have you even in this crazy COVID time. So thank you for being here. Looks like we got some staff here and I'll just read them off of the list. Candace Hassenjaeger, Carmen McDonald, Jacqueline Pacheco, Joel Williams, Kim Wells, Lindsay Russell, Marisa Egbert, Randy Staker, Shalane DiBernardi, Todd Stoneley, Tom Cox, And then myself, I guess that's it. And welcome to those that are out in YouTube land. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Jim, do we now have you? You're muted.
Jim, if you do Control D, the control button plus the D.
And Mr. Chairman, we just had Ben Merritt join on from our staff also.
Okay, good. Welcome.
So Jim, you're unmuted, but we can't hear you. Leave your video on and I'm gonna call, you want me to call you on your phone and call you into the meeting for audio? Jim? I'm calling Jim into the meeting. He'll do by the phone for audio. You there, Jim?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Okay, so we were just doing a roll call of those in attendance. So for Lower Colorado River, Jim Lemon, you're now with us. Is that correct? Are you with us, Jim?
Jim, can you hear
It
us on the
won't,
phone?
yeah, but it won't let me unmute where you can hear me.
We can hear you out through the phone. We can hear you just
Okay.
fine. You're good. So
Okay,
Blain asked you a question.
yes, I'm here.
Okay, so with that, with the roll call, all board members are present through roll call today, and we welcome all board members. Again, we welcome the staff members who are present, and we welcome all who may be participating out in, as Director Adams said, YouTube land. Let's go through just a few housekeeping items for our virtual meetings. If you're participating on a phone, to unmute your phone, use *6 to mute and unmute on a phone. On a computer, to mute or unmute, Control D on the computer. So those are some housekeeping things. As far as the format, when we get into the board meeting and have our presentations from staff, we will first have I'll invite staff to give a presentation. Then we'll have comments from the applicant. We'll have questions from the board. We'll ask if there's been any public comments. We'll have a discussion, any clarifications, a motion, and that when you're not speaking, if you can please mute your mic, it helps with that. So with that, let's go into item number 2 on our briefing agenda, discussion of board agenda items. The first item on our agenda for today in the board meeting will be approval of minutes. Have all the board members had a chance? I'm assuming you've had a chance to review the minutes. One comment that I had was on the minutes of the August 6th, 1 o'clock board meeting. Under number 1, welcome and approval of minutes. After the first paragraph, it says Chair Ipson did a roll call vote and all were present. I think that should be did a roll call. We didn't vote on the roll call, so take the word vote out. And I did a roll call of board members who were present. The next item says Director Todd Adams did a roll call vote for staff and other participants. Take the word vote out of there. I would suggest those 2 changes. Those were the changes I had. Board members, did you have anything else on there that you've noticed?
Mr. Chairman, this is Charles Holmgren. I had a couple of questions on page 7 of the briefing minutes. On Burns Bench Irrigation Company, I was wondering if it says 1,700 feet of 240-inch HDPE pipe. I was wondering if that's 24-inch and not 240-inch.
That's pretty good sized pipe, isn't it?
Yeah.
That should be 24-inch rather than 240.
Okay. And then on page 9, where I had some discussion about Bear River Canal Company and applying for PL 566 grants from NRCS, it states PL 5166, and I just wondered if we needed to clarify that's PL 566.
What would you suggest to be as, Charles?
Instead of 5166, 566.
So take the 1 out of there. It's
Yes.
PM 566.
Yeah. Center of the page on page 9.
Yeah. So change that to PL 566. Okay.
Yes, please.
Okay. Any other corrections or suggestions on the minutes that anyone has? Okay, good. We will then, when we get in the regular meeting, we will, when the time's there, entertain a motion to approve the minutes with the corrections which have been given. So when we get to that point in the regular meeting, we'll go over the minutes or have them approved that way then. Okay, the next item on our board meeting will be a feasibility report, project RE441. It's Porterville City and Wayne. This one is yours, Utah County, and the project manager is Tom Cox. So Wayne or Tom, I'm not sure who wants to give us a briefing on what this one is.
I think I'm going to let Tom take most of this. I haven't met with the people of Provo City in person, but in going over their project, to me, it looks like an outstanding kind of a thing to do. And so I'm gonna turn the time to Tom. You there, Tom?
Need to unmute myself. You think I'd remember, but it's been too much. I didn't meet with the city either because of the COVID thing, so it's been mainly taken care of over phone calls and email. So sorry for not keeping in the loop, Wayne, but I'm going to try to keep my presentations brief, so if there's any questions, feel free to jump in. And I've been being thrown out, my phone's been being cut off, so I may have to log in again, so just bear with me. Provo City has a population of about 126,000. I believe it's the 3rd largest city in Utah. And they get their water primarily from area springs and wells, and some from the Central Utah Water Conservancy District. Their population grows, the city's constantly looking at good water sources and something that they can look forward to in the future. And they have a bunch of Provo River water rights that they haven't been able to use because they don't have any treatment plants of their own to treat that water. And there isn't a secondary system in the city. So they've primarily been using their wells to keep up with the water needs. And that has had the static water level in those wells have been declining steadily over the last decade or so. So they're looking for projects to utilize their Provo River water rights, which may include aquifer storage and recovery projects, ASR projects, and also they're considering building their own water treatment plant. So what they're proposing right now is to use some of their Provo River water and pump it up to Rock Canyon so it can be discharged up there and recharge their aquifer from which the city wells draw. So that project will include a pump station on the Provo River, another one kind of midway at their Timpanogos Canal, which also has Provo River water in it. And so there's those two pump stations and about 2.5 miles of pipeline. So that's the project. The cost estimate is about $20.65 million, and they are approaching the drinking water board for almost $7.4 million. They've applied for a Water Smart grant of $750,000, and they'll be asking our board for $10 million. So that's what they're asking for at this time. I think they want to add to our presentation during the board meeting, so we'll see how that goes and what they actually want once the board meeting starts. The funding will be through a bond, and that'll be returned at 1% interest over 20 years, a payment of about $585,000. Because their cost of water is over what our water affordability guidelines suggest, it could be have a longer payback period, but they've chosen to stick with the 20 years. So that's what they'll be asking for today. And they're working with the Division of Water Quality and the Division of Water Rights on getting all the needed permits and everything for the project. Are there any questions?
Mr. Chairman, this is Kyle. I just have a couple of questions. Again, as I look at the total amount of the money available, and we had this discussion in our last meeting when we were discussing the American Fork City application, and that was $22 million. And then we bring this one in at $10 million. That ends up being, $32 million, which is almost half of that of those funds available. Do we have any concerns about tying that much money up into just those projects, which would perhaps eliminate or make it so that we were not able to fund other projects as they come online in the future? So that's a basic question.
Director Adams, how would you respond to that, or Tom?
I'm sorry, we were having some issues. I was trying to take care of that. Would you repeat that question, Kyle? I apologize.
That's okay. Yeah, the question was, we discussed the American Fork City project last year, had quite a bit, or last week, or excuse me, last month, or last time we met, of $22 million. And then this one coming in at $10 million for a total between the two of them of $32 million, which is almost half of the available funds. Do we have any concerns about tying up that much money into just, 2 projects.
No, we're in great shape if we look at our status of funds, and we'll give a presentation on that here in a little bit. But no, so far, when we put it into our projections, looking forward with repayments, new funds coming into our loans or your loans, it looks like we can handle this.
Okay, thank you.
Am I still coming across muted?
Nope, we can hear
Can
you
you
just
hear me
fine.
now?
Yep.
I can't hear, everything I hear is static. I'm going to take just a minute, log out and come back in.
Can I, Mr. Chairman, if I can just let you know, there are several of us that are having a hard time, both hearing or speaking for some reason today, or just logging on in general. I don't know why, but there's several of us.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah,
maybe
you're crystal clear right there. I can see Todd talking, but I can't hear him at all. Should I log out and come right back in?
Mr. Chairman, I would propose you propose a break in order to do that.
Okay, I can read the captions. I propose that we take just a little break in our meeting right now and see if we can get some of these technical things worked out. So we're going to call a break in our meeting right now. It is 10:24. And so see if we can get things worked out.
Blain, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Todd, you want to try to talk to him?
Can you hear me, Blain?
Yes, I do, Todd.
Good.
Todd Adams.
Looks
He
like
might have his,
was distracted.
yeah, he's,
I'm back. I'm sorry. Are you, Blain, can you hear us better now? Mr.
I hear
Chairman?
you. I hear all of you a lot better.
All right, well, maybe that worked.
Okay. Should we reconvene then from our break?
Mr. Chairman, if you're ready to do that. Jim, Jim, can you hear us better now?
Should we, I was gonna say maybe we could have all the board members do a mic check. Make
Right,
sure
that might
we can all hear them before we come back, maybe?
That would be good.
Okay, let's do a mic check. Oh, what's that feedback? Wow, echo.
I think Jim has his phone and his computer on. So Jim, if you can mute your phone and then unmute your computer, that might help.
So you hear me, Blain?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you, Jim. Yes, we hear you, Randy.
Okay. I'm off the phone and back on the computer. Now we got it working.
Okay, so let's do a phone check. Let's start Charles.
I'm here.
Okay, Kyle,
Here.
Juliet,
I'm here.
Wayne,
Here.
Randy,
Here.
Norm,
I'm here.
and Jim.
Here.
Okay, so we're all back, and I actually heard all of you very clearly that time. But I'm hearing an echo though when I speak.
Jim, maybe there, try it now, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I don't hear an echo now, so. Okay, so it sounds like we're ready to reconvene. So our break is over. Go back into our briefing meeting. It is now 10:28 a.m. on October the 8th. So we'll go back in. We were finishing up our presentation on Provo City. Did any of the board members have any further questions for either Tom or Wayne? Okay, the next item on our agenda is committal of funds, project RE432, Davis and Weber Counties Canal Company. It's in Davis County. And so, Kyle, this will be you. Tom is the staff member. So, Kyle or Tom?
I'll let Tom go ahead and have any discussion that's appropriate.
In April, the board authorized the project to enclose about 3,400 feet of deteriorating lined and unlined canal and replace about 2,900 feet of corroding steel pipe. The cost estimate, cost sharing hasn't changed. They've opened bids for phase one, which will be done starting construction in a couple of weeks, and the rest will be done next year. They have to do it outside of the irrigation season. So the recommendation remains the same. It's board commit 57.4% of the project cost up to $3.44 million. And the project be purchased at 1.49% interest over 30 years with payment to about $143,300. So any questions on that one?
Okay, that sounds like that. Are you prepared to make a motion on that, Kyle?
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Okay, and on the previous ones, Wayne with Provo City, are you prepared to make a motion on that?
Yes, I am.
Okay, good. Now we go into special items. The first one is project RE442. It's West Milburn Irrigation Company. It's in Sanpete County, which is my area. Marisa, would you give us a little briefing on this one, please?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I'm going to keep my video off just to try to de-escalate some of the tech issues. And sorry, I need to catch up on the project in my head a little bit here. Been doing tech stuff here. So this project is a little bit smaller project. It's out of the revolving construction fund. Looks like a really good project. This project will replace, there's about 4 miles of canal that runs along mostly the hillside. And you'll see the pictures of it during the board meeting. But replacing, and if you have your board folders, you can see the map, replacing, over 4 miles of canal with just under 3 miles of pipeline. And they do have a Water Smart grant. It is secured. And they need to get moving on this project because they also have some loans coming in play for all of them for on-farm sprinkler systems. So they are mostly flood irrigated now, and that everyone is committed to go to sprinkle irrigated for this project. So the cost estimate is about $650,000. They are asking the board for $335,000. So that's about 85% of the non-grant money when you take out the Water Smart grant. And so I have discussed this with them, as you saw in the board folder. Their assessment used to be $10 an acre. It's now 20. They changed that recently, $20 an acre. And this project will increase by quite a bit. It's on the end of about over $40 an acre or a share, which is the same thing. But they run out of water so early, and then even trying to get it down the canal. And then annual payments, 25 years, $13,400. And I've discussed that with the kind of their project manager that's running things down there, and he said that that's what they were expecting, around that amount.
Okay, any questions on this project? It does look like a good project to me also. Would somebody be willing to make a motion on this in my behalf?
Mr. Chairman, I'll do that.
I can.
Okay, so Kyle will make a motion on that. Okay, thank you. Next project under special items is project RC046, Baker Reservoir Company. They're asking for additional funds. It's in Washington County. Jim, this is your area, and Tom is the project manager. Either Jim or Tom, could you give us a briefing on this?
Tom can probably give you more update. I was out and looked at it back when it first came on, and it is needed, but it's been stalled a little bit, and I think Tom knows more than I do now.
The dam provides water to irrigation water to the communities of Gunlock, Bayo, and Central, and it's a high hazard dam, doesn't meet the state minimum standards. So in 2013, the board committed funds to slip line the outlet conduit and build a new intake structure. And that was finished, and they are poured in last year committed funds for phase 2, which includes replacing the spillway, building a parapet wall on the crest, and installing tow drains to catch the seepage past the required storm flows. Bids were recently opened and came in a lot higher than anticipated. The project cost estimate has been increased by about $650,000, and that will entail increasing the grant and the loan amount from the board. So the recommended the board commit an additional $585,000 grant and $65,000 as a loan, and amend the agreement. Say that the board will provide 90% of the project up to $3,915,000 in dam safety grant, and 10% of the project up to $435,000 as a loan, with a balance to be returned at 0% interest that's coming out of the revolving funds over 25 years with annual payments of about $17,000. Any questions on that one?
Did everybody hear Tom okay? I hear him, but it's pretty light. Tom, if you can try speaking into your microphone just a little bit more directly, maybe when you talk again, but I hope everybody was able to hear that.
Adequate for me.
Okay, I'm getting thumbs up. Just want to make sure.
That was good.
Blain, you're muted.
Okay, are there any questions on this project then? Okay, Jim, are you prepared to make a motion on this project?
Yes.
Okay, good, thank you. Next special item project is RC064. It's Sevier Valley Canal Company. They're asking for additional funds also. It's in Sevier County. And Tom, this is you again. And again, Tom, you were kind of faint. for me also. So if you can speak more close to your phone, that would be good, or your computer.
All right, will do. Is that any better?
Yes, it is.
Okay, the Sevier Valley Canal Company owns the Three Creeks Dam, which is located about 10 miles northwest of the community of Sevier in Sevier County. The board authorized or committed funds for that project in this August meeting, and bids were opened after that and came in higher than anticipated. So they're going to be asking for another $70,000 from the board in grant loan mix. So the staff recommends the board commit an additional $63,000 in grant and $7,000 in loan, and amend the agreement to state that the board will provide 90% of the project cost up to $180,000 as a grant and 10% of the project up to $20,000 as a loan, to be returned at 0% interest over 10 years with payments of about $2,000.
Seems to be kind of a common theme a little bit on when the bids come in, they're higher than what was projected, doesn't it?
Yeah, we like to commit funds after the bids are open, but in these two cases, because they needed to jump on the construction, we needed to commit funds prior. So yeah, there's usually a surprise.
Yeah. Okay, are there any questions for Tom on this project? Okay, where that's my area, would somebody be willing to make a motion on this project?
This is Norman. I could do that.
Okay, thanks, Norman. Okay, under special items, project RE368, Rock Point Canal and Irrigation Company. It's a proposal to modify some of the terms. It's in Uintah County. So Randy, this one's yours, and then Tom is the project manager. So Randy or Tom, if you'd like to give us a briefing on this one, please.
I'll just let Tom go ahead and fill you in. Basically, they're just asking for an extension from 20 years to 30 years based on cost of alfalfa and what's happening today.
Okay.
So that's right. In May of 2017, the board committed $615,000 for the project to replace 5 miles of canal and ditches. And that's been completed, and the system's run a couple years. The water users have seen some benefit from the project, but not to the extent that we estimated initially, and they're struggling to come up with the necessary assessment to make the annual payment to the board. Our recommended annual payment is based on net project benefit, and we use an estimated yield increase and crop price. In this case, we use $170 per ton for alfalfa, and according to the USDA data, they're only getting an average about $150 per ton there. So that reduces the money that they're bringing in. So that reduces the amount that they can pay to the board. And we also, when we calculate the annual payment, base that on the board's cost share percentages on the project, and that ended up being only 26.7% rather than the 39.7%. So if we were to calculate the annual payment today, it would reduce the payment from about $30,800 down to $20,200. So the sponsor is asking for an extension of their payment. It just turns out that the numbers kind of match up with that, so I think it's a good thing for the board. Just one thing I may mention, for some reason the irrigation company president has it stuck in his head that he's already asked for this extension, but we've looked at the minutes and the video, and that didn't happen. So I don't know if he'll bring that up, but if he does, just grin and smile and nod your head and give him what he asked for. Just don't want to make anyone look bad.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from Tom or Randy on this one?
Maybe just to clarify, when the board calculations, it comes out to 19,800 and the payments would be 20,200, which I think makes it work for them. So it's a good deal. Thanks.
Okay, any other questions on this one? Okay. Okay, I'm getting a little feedback that when Tom is speaking that there's some feedback from mine. So when Tom gives a presentation in any of these meetings, I will mute mine and we'll see if that helps when that's happening also. So Tom, when it gets your turn, I'm going to be muting my mic on my machine. Randy, are you prepared to make a motion on this one?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next project, special item project, is RE401. It is West Porterville Irrigation Company. This one also has a proposal to modify terms. It's in Morgan County. So Kyle, this one's yours, and Ben is the project manager on this. So Kyle or Ben, if you can give us a briefing on this one, please.
I'll let Ben go ahead and give the explanation.
Thanks, Kyle. And good morning, everybody. So the West Porterville Irrigation Company, they had a project with three major components. There was a pipeline, there was a micro hydropower pressure reducing valve, and there was an enlargement of a settling pond. And as of now, the pipeline and the micro hydropower PRV have been installed, and they are going to be working on the pond this fall and coming spring. They expect to have it done next spring. The project has come in on budget, and they expect to be able to complete the pond and still have the project be about $222,000 below budget. So they are requesting that the board decrease their overall cost share for the project, but increase the board's cost share percentage of the project. So right now they're below the 85-15 split that the board often does, and they're requesting that the board go up to the 85-15 split. So there is a Water Smart grant for $1 million. So the percentages are a little bit wonky, but what you see there in the report is after the Water Smart grant is taken out of the overall project cost, the board and applicant will split the remaining share. So, yeah, are there any questions on that?
Okay, it's good we have one that actually the costs have gone down, and we have done 85-15 on that. So from my perspective, this is a good project. Does anyone have any questions or comments on it?
Mr. Chairman, this is Kyle. Those were going to be my comments as well. It's not often that we see projects come in under budget. And so, for the board to be able to make those concessions with the percentage, the differential there certainly would help them. And the fact that they're going to be able to, complete the remainder of the project, again, under budget, is commendable.
Okay, thanks, Kyle. Any other comments? Okay, Kyle, are you prepared to make a motion on this?
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next special item project, RE020. It's on Center Creek Water System. It's a request to defer some payments. It's in Wasatch County. So Wayne, this is yours. And Shalene, this is also, you're the project manager. So Wayne or Shalene?
I'll let Shalene explain it.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So this one actually, it wasn't my project. It was Val Anderson's project. Tells you how old it is. In 2005, the board provided funds for a culinary water system. They built most of it, and then in 2008, when a new development was supposed to come on and help provide some of the funds to finish the project, that development didn't happen because of the economic downturn. And so they didn't get everything that they wanted. They have been saving up over the years and finally have most of the money to finish what they didn't get to before. And initially they contacted Wayne and myself about possibly getting more money. And we said, for a project this old, that would be tough. And they said, what if we just deferred our payments? If we didn't have to make a payment to you this year, we could probably cover the cost. They've saved up most of the money and feel like if they didn't have to make their payment to the board this year, they'd be able to finish their project. And I said, that's much more reasonable. We'll present that to the board. So staff will be recommending that all remaining payments be deferred for 1 year and that the interest for the past year be forgiven. And then their regular payments will resume next year until they pay off the project. And that's staff's report. Any questions?
Wayne, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, they've been pretty responsible up to now, and I understand the situation around that 2008 era because I was mayor of Spanish Fork, and I understand what that downturn in the economy did. They've been working hard. I think it's a good thing that we go ahead and forgive this for them and allow them to complete their project.
Okay, thanks. Any other comments or questions, clarification from the board?
This is Norman. How much is the interest?
The interest is about $8,000. So it's significant for them. I mean, they actually need about 60,000 to finish their project. Their payment isn't that much, including the interest. But they think if they don't have to pay this $30,000 to $40,000 to the board, they can actually, with additional savings, they'll be able to finish the project and then make their payments next year.
Mr. Chairman, this is Kyle.
Juliet, I believe you were first. So
Okay,
Juliet, and then Kyle.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Mr. Chair. When we do these deferments, do we typically? I mean, do we typically forgive interest? Do we typically not forgive interest? Is there like, you know?
We've done both.
Okay.
For the last several years, most of the time we've required an interest-only payment and simply deferred the principal payments. But we have in the past also forgiven interest. I've written amendments for that. So, so you have done that in the past.
Okay. I mean, I think it's relatively small relative to our kind of budget and ability to do projects, but it's big to them. And so I don't have a problem with it. I just wanted to know.
Okay.
Kind of if there was a precedent.
My recollection is that our last meeting, we did not forgive interest on one of the projects, but that was because they had made a mistake. And
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but since I've been on the board, it's gone both ways.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Kyle, you had a question?
Yeah, those were some of the same questions that I had. A question for staff is, have they been current on their payments throughout the life of their loan?
Yes, they have.
Okay, that was the first question. And I'd written down a whole bunch of questions when I was reading through it until I turned over the page and read the project summary. Then that answered a lot of the questions that I had written. But I just wanted to remind the board, and Blain already alluded to it, that in a recent meeting we did not forgive the interest and penalties on one project, but then that had some different circumstances involved in that they had been late and had a number of issues there. So there is a little bit of a difference there in that issue. And then the other one was, when I first looked at this, my question was going to be, is this a COVID policy request? Which apparently it's not.
No, they didn't specifically request that. As I said, their initial request was going to be for more money, and we just said that's going to be tough on a 15-year-old project. And so that's when they asked to just defer their payment, but they never did mention COVID. And it's not that they can't make their payment. They could, they just can't build their project and make their payment. So that's what it came down to.
And if Shalane, could I add to that? This is Marisa.
Sure.
Because it had Val Anderson's name, but then it had my name because I was the one that ended up finishing up the reimbursements. So I talked with them as well at the beginning. Shalane asked me to. And that's one thing Shalane just said. They initially asked for more money, but for them to ask for more money, they'd have to update their attorney's opinion, update, and go and do a bunch of things extra that would cost that much more money. Whereas they actually, I believe they came up with this idea of deferring this. And when I talked to him, I said, well, your payment's about 30-something thousand. You need 60-something thousand. Should we defer 2 years? And he said, no, actually, if we can just do the 1 year, but also the interest. And so I think were you not forgiving the interest, they would almost need to be asking for a second deferment. So.
Thank you, Marisa.
Okay, any other clarification or discussion on this project? Okay, Wayne, are you prepared to make a motion on this?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you. Going through our agenda. Now, again, if I think it'll help our background if every time, I've been trying to do it just barely with me too. After you get through speaking, if we can each mute our devices, I think it will help. And I'll make sure I try to remember to do the same. Going through, we have a new application, RE443, which is Wayne's area. It's on Bench Creek, Sunrise Irrigation Company in Wasatch County. In the interest of time, we don't have any action to take on that today. It's just a new application, so we won't discuss that now. We'll have in our meeting a planning report on cloud seeding by Jake. We'll have a Lake Powell pipeline report.
Mr. Chair, on the cloud seeding, you will also have a request for funding for this next year too. So that it does take a board action. So, and this is a standard component that we do every year.
Yeah.
I would just mention on that, I'm not sure if Jake's on the call right now, but in this last legislative session, the legislature did allow us to appropriate $200,000 instead of the $150,000 that has typically been the case. So that will be the request, is for you guys to appropriate that whole amount. Appropriate's not the right word, commit that whole amount. I guess. Shalane, what's the right word? Something. Okay. Thanks. Just a heads up.
Okay. How much is that going to be for?
So traditionally, the last 10 to 15 years, it's been about $150,000 that we've appropriated out of the C&D funds or committed out of the C&D funds. The board has. And this time the request will be to commit $200,000. And that's what the legislature approved this year. So it would just need your approval to do that as well. And just a little bit of background on why that request was made from the legislature is we have had additional project areas come online. hopefully that you're already familiar with, like Salt Lake City Public Utilities started in the, sorry, I just got a text and it distracted me, but Salt Lake Public Utilities just started their project area last year, I believe was their first year. And it's just gotten to the point where we're starting to hit up against that 300,000 mark, and we haven't had any increase in, like I said, 10 to 15 years, and we can get you some specifics on that as well.
Okay, thank you. So any further question from any of the board on this? Then we will need a motion and have a vote on it. Is anyone willing to make the motion on this? If it would be for committing $200,000 funding for the cloud seeding effort.
I can make the motion, or Randy too.
Okay, so Juliet, we'll have Juliet make that motion then. And so Juliet, pay attention to what they've got. Maybe Candace can get you a little information on what the motion should include.
That's great. Thanks, Candace.
Yep, we'll get it sent over to you.
Great.
Mr. Chairman, this is Charles. Hey, I don't know yet, but generally speaking, I work as a contractor for North American Weather, so I may identify myself as having a conflict of interest on this.
Okay, I think that would be appropriate.
Okay.
So when we get to that point, make sure we do that, and we'll make sure that that is noted in the minutes and you're reclused from voting on this.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, the next item that we'll have will be a Lake Powell pipeline report from Joel, and it entails also approval to enter into a programmatic agreement. Joel or Todd or anyone, do we have any information the board should know right now on what that might entail?
Yes, thanks, Blain. We had received a copy of that from the Bureau of Land Management, the BLM, and I put it on there as a placeholder. The document has not yet been signed by the state BLM director, and so it's not ready for the board's signature and approval yet. So I put it on hoping that it may come this week, and it didn't. So that we won't be doing the programmatic agreement, but we will be asking for additional funds on our contract with Stantec, and I will explain that. But that request will be to enter into basically the current amendment that we're under expires at the end of this year, and we're going to extend that for an additional 2 years and request an additional $2.92 million for the Stantec contract for an additional 2 years, and I'll give some additional detail on that unless there are questions about it now.
Any board members have any questions on that? The extending the agreement for Stantec for 2 years at $2.92 million. Any questions for Joel on this? If not, would someone on the board be willing to make a motion when the time comes on this?
I suppose that might fall to me, would it?
Yeah, so Jim, you'll make a motion. Joel, could you please get Jim some wording on what the motion should include then?
Yes, I will send that over to Jim.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda will be a water banking report. And that was one of the things that as a board we requested our last meeting, was to kind of get some things put in place on water banking. And I know that things have been happening on that. Emily Lewis, consultant, will be giving us a briefing. And then Jacqueline will give a little presentation on the public hearing and an adoption of fees. She'll present that information. Is there any action or, well, first off, Jacqueline or Candace, is there anything the board should be aware on either of those two issues? And also, is there any action from the board that we'll need to be taking?
So can you guys hear me? Okay, so I will be introducing Emily Lewis. She is a partner at the law firm of Clyde, Snow and Sessions. And in July of this year, they were awarded the water banking project manager contract to oversee the 3-year effort to pilot the water banking concepts and produce a statewide water marketing strategy report. So she'll give us an update on where we're at with the water banking project. And then I will cover the adoption of fees. So our proposed water banking application fees were submitted to the Governor's Office of Management and Budget on September 28th, where we can collect up to $5,000 in application fees per fiscal year. And we will need a motion to adopt the water banking application fees. So we're proposing 2 applications and application fees associated with the type of water bank that will be established. So for the statutory water bank, it would be about, the proposed fee is $300. And for the contract water bank applications, the proposed application fee is $200. And in the presentation, I'll give you information as to how we came up with those amounts. So the motion that we'll need is for the board to adopt both of the application fees. And I will have that on a presentation where you guys can see the motion, but I can also send you guys the motion via email.
I think it would be good to send all the board members via email.
Okay, I'll go ahead and do that.
Mr.
Okay.
Chair, can I add one thing?
Please.
And I appreciate Jacqueline's response and all of her efforts. And just so the board is aware, she is our project funding staff who's in charge of all of the water banking stuff. She's taken over that. So I really appreciate her and all of her efforts. In addition to both of those things, we are also working on a board checklist of what all is required in the application. I haven't seen a final of that, so it will probably be at your December board meeting in which you get that. Currently, and Emily will give an update on this, and it might be a good question, but do we have an estimate of time of when the first application's coming in? We are definitely, with her help and as part of the BOR Water Smart grant that we received, are having 3 pilot project areas move forward. And so we will be getting at least 3 applications, I would assume, at some point. So she might be able to give you a little background. And then I think just from a process procedure with the adoption of fees is we have to hold the public hearing first. So see if there was any public comments. Obviously, Mr. Chair, you probably already know that, and then adopt the fees would just be the couple of things I'd add to that.
Mr. Chairman, this is Kyle. A couple of questions relative to, if I understood Jacqueline's explanation of fees correctly, or maybe I misunderstood, but it said, I thought she said that the legislature gave approval that you could collect fees up to $5,000. And then you're setting the fee schedule. What happens if you have more requests than the $5,000? You can only collect up to $5,000, or what happens there?
And Mr. Chair, if I may.
Please.
Yes, what Jacqueline said is correct, that we can only accept fees up to $5,000. We did consider that as we developed the proposed fees to try to make sure we didn't hit that. I don't think we will at this level. We didn't see that as any sort of a barrier, but if we had set, and this is just a guess, at like $1,000 and we got more than 5 applications, that would become problematic. At this rate, I don't foresee it being an issue at these 2 rates.
All right,
Mr. Chairman, just Wayne Anderson, I was wondering what the reasoning was to put a cap on it. Why cap it at 5,000?
Candace? And Mr. Chair, I would just say that was just it wasn't our choice or anything. They set that.
That was a little bit broken up, members of the board.
It was broke up bad for me.
Sorry, can you hear me now? I feel like I'm in a bad Verizon commercial. All I was saying is that that was what the legislative body decided to set a cap at. So it was not something we asked for. They chose to issue the dedicated credits of only $5,000. Was that a little more clear?
It's clear, but it's not understandable. I mean, yeah, why would the legislature do that?
They're just trying to.
But in their wisdom, there's a lot of things that leave a question.
Mr. Chairman, if I can respond to that, it was their determination that they were trying to recuperate some of the costs to do this, and they would put that back on the applicants. So that's how I would try to explain that.
Well, that's fine. That's fine, but why cap it at 5,000 if there's a possibility of 6,000 or 10,000 or 15,000? Why cap it? I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me. That's all. And I just one of those stupid people that don't understand.
I think it's called politics.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions or comments on this water banking report?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, this is Charles Holmgren, and I myself and Bear River Canal Company and Bear River Water Conservancy District have had some discussion with Emily Lewis, who coincidentally is also our counsel at Bear River Canal Company. And water banking per se may not be an issue, but there are a lot of issues revolving around water banking and split season water right transfers and things like that are giving us a lot of concern. So, and we're concerned about this water banking pilot project and how it will impact the state engineer's office and whether they will be able to financially shepherd some of this water through the water bank.
Yeah, I share some of your same concerns, Charles, and it will be interesting to see how it all plays out as it comes along. I think we all have a lot more questions than we have answers. At least I do on this topic right now. So
thanks.
Thanks, Charles. Okay, the next item on our agenda will be a report on the Bear River Development Report. Marisa is going to do that. Would you like to give us a brief summary of what you're going to present there, Marisa?
So I was actually doing a little bit different update for the briefing meeting than in the board meeting. The board meeting, I'm going to just discuss the 2 properties that have been purchased because that is now public information. In the briefing meeting, I was going to discuss some of the behind the scenes that needs to go on more than just right of way acquisition itself. It's what the heck do you do with it once you have it? And then in the closed meeting, I'll discuss some of the properties that are in different levels of closing. That is some of the real estate items that we would talk about in the closed meeting. So can I share my screen and let me give you some of the behind the scenes really quickly. And I know we're short on time with everything today. Let's see if I can, sorry. And sorry, it's messing with me. Okay, and I don't know if it's showing up as a PowerPoint, how it's showing up. Can you see one sheet at a time right now? For a PowerPoint? Nothing?
I can't see anything yet.
We're just seeing you're presenting to everyone. We're just seeing your Google Chrome tab.
Oh, I love this stuff. I apologize. I'll just do it the way that'll be easier. There we go. Does that look like a PowerPoint now?
Yay, you're there.
All right. Okay, so just kind of give an update on what we're working on. Are you seeing the sheet that says current acquisition status? Okay, so 2 properties have been purchased. One is a residential detention basin. They don't want to lease it back. And another is a 65-foot strip on the west end of the Richmond Peach Farms. And much to Candace's chagrin, I realized later that there were some peach trees in our area that we purchased when I told her not to touch the trees when we were out on a tour. But I will discuss those in the board meeting. Those are of public information. So we'll report that in the board meeting. There's these five other properties I just mentioned that are in different stages of closing, and I'll talk to you about that in the closed meeting. So this is some of the behind the scenes that I wasn't going to go into the nitty gritty necessarily in the board meeting. It's been quite a learning curve here, and I'm actually going to see if I can turn on my camera. Makes me feel closer to everybody. It's been a learning curve to figure out other state agencies can help us. And so the DFCM, Department of Facilities and Construction Management, we have had a lot of discussions with them. They have actually ordered a couple of appraisals for us. They're ordering what's called the Phase 1 ESAs. Those are environmental site assessments that have to be done both at residential and non-residential properties. And it's basically a 40-year look at the history up to the current day of anything that could pose an environmental threat, environmental hazard. Almost every single one of these properties along the old rail line are going to have, a ding for having been next to a rail line at one point where train cars could have dumped stuff, could have overturned. And that is something that's a little bit lower level. But then there'll be some other things that might pop up of someone dumping something that's hazardous. And so those ESAs will help us out, basically know what we're getting into when we're buying some of these properties. Then risk management, and that's actually, that's DFCM, but that's the real estate division of DFCM that's helping us with that. They're also giving us some guidance on some of the things that pop up when you're trying to buy real estate, when you're trying to buy only part of a parcel, not the whole parcel. So they're helping us with that. Risk management is also under DFCM. They are the ones that basically they take care of the property owned by the state of Utah. So we did some inspection and I'm putting it in quotes because it wasn't the kind of inspection you would see someone crawling around in your attic or in your crawl space. But we met with a representative from risk management. She looked over these 7 properties looking for, including the 2 that have been purchased, and then also the 5 others, and looking for those issues that we need to be aware of. Based on that, we are working with them to adjust the lease agreement where it talks about the condition of the property. There were some specific hazards that showed up, some electrical issues, some open holes, some gates not locked that were available, easy access to the public. And so those specific hazards we are going to list in the lease agreement for that property in what we believe is going to be in an addendum. And these lease agreements right now are for the sellers that are leasing back. And so for those, we're going to list these items and basically say these were all the property is already in this condition. You're accepting the risk that comes with these specific items. And then if we go to another tenant after them, those are definitely things that we will get in and fix. There's a few things that we don't want to go in and fix right now because they're living in the house. And so we've got some information on that, going back to risk management, talking to them. We're also going to adjust the language for the insurance. We had followed Weber Basin and Jordan Valley Water Conservancy districts with their insurance, but talking to risk management, we are making a change in that. Risk management will insure the structures, the permanent structures. They will have liability on the land of the parcel, but the tenants have to have their own insurance for their own property that is on the parcels. So we're making them aware of that. And we'll put that new language into the lease agreements. And then hopefully you can see the maintenance management now. So now we have pieces of property. Now what? So we've got some non-residential properties already, including the detention basin, that needs to be cleaned up according to Box Elder County's requirements. It's in a little residential subdivision. We've got some commercial properties, and we've just got undeveloped land. Some of that undeveloped land, those already been, especially after the windstorm, there were more trees dumped on the land. And there's a lot of trees, including Candace's favorite peach trees, that it actually would be easier to not maintain them. And so we've had discussions with Weber Basin. They've given us a cost estimate per parcel, what they think it would cost over 5 years for kind of the worst case scenario, how many trees they would have to take out, what they'd have to do to level the land. One piece of property people are riding ATVs and motocross, and there's a hill because there's a little hill there. So things like that need to be flattened and cleaned up, and then reseeded. So fencing, signage, and then they will also have at least twice a year they'll have regular maintenance on those properties. The residential, we are going to put out an RFP for a property management company. They will be kind of the one-stop shop. They will collect rent, ask for rent, deal with inspections, with the tenants coming and going, maintenance, the fun stuff of whether or not we have to buy a furnace or fix a roof. And then also looking for the next tenant. So these are all things they will take care of. And our understanding is there's typically a fee. And so it's one thing where they'll collect all the monies, do any of the maintenance they need to do, and then take off the fee and send us what's remaining to the Board of Water Resources, which I believe Todd would just go back into or I don't know if Jim's not on here. Jim Egbert, our finance director, we're working with him to figure out how to compartmentalize that money so it can continue to be part of what we need for the right-of-way acquisition. And I think that's about it on that background, how we get to buying a property and what do we do once we have it. So, and I won't be necessarily presenting this in the board meeting. I'll just plan to, in the public portion, just talk about the 2 properties that we have purchased. I don't know if you have any questions.
Any questions for Marisa? Okay, thank you, Marisa.
Yep.
Next item on our board meeting agenda after that will be the proposed schedule for 2021 meetings. And we all received the initial proposed meeting schedule. Any comments on that? Are those dates, the 2021 potential board meeting dates? Any conflicts or problems with any of those dates? There are January 28th, March 17th, May 6th, June 17th, August 5th, September 16th, October 28th, and December 9th. Is there any problems or conflicts with any of those?
Mr. Chairman, this is Kyle. Where I represent the board on the Community Impact Board, they have already set their 2021 schedule, and I haven't. There is a direct conflict on May 6th. Both meetings are scheduled for that day. That happened last year, and I just withdrew participation in the CIB because this one's my primary board assignment. But just make mention of that.
Okay, would we be able to adjust the May meeting?
We will go back and look at additional dates, Mr. Chairman, or.
Well, and that's the one I'd like to mention, Todd, that we had April 29th that we were looking at, and we can't do the week before April 29th because there's already a wildlife board meeting, I think, scheduled for that day. So there would be a conflict in the building and with the AV team. So we could push it back if you wanted, or we could leave it and Kyle could choose a meeting.
Well, and we could also look at maybe Wednesday or Friday on that particular time also, so.
Yeah. Okay.
So, I mean, Mr. Chairman, if it's okay, what we'll do is if it's okay or the direction from you all, we can try to look at another time. These are just for your information. There's no action to be taken. It's just for your information to come across any potential issues. So we will take a motion on that in December.
Okay. Okay, then that was my question, was did we need action? But if we don't need action, then if staff can maybe for our meeting circulate out before our December meeting an alternate date for that, whether it be Wednesday or Saturday or the following Thursday, or if you can come up with a proposal. The closer we get to the later in May, the busier it gets with school activities and things like that. So I would hesitate to move it back myself a week. But
okay, we will look at dates.
Right. Yeah, right. Okay, so that's that item, and then we'll have a director's report in our board meeting. Then we will go.
Hang on, I'm sorry, Blaine. Can I? There's no action on this one. But could we take a second to discuss this December's meeting?
Yeah.
Or is that later? Do you have that scheduled for later, Todd?
No, I did have it on this meeting's agenda later, but let's deal with it right now.
Well, I just was wondering, since there's the conflict when we have our board meeting scheduled, just wondered if the board wanted to talk about what they wanted to do, if they expect an in-person meeting. I'm kind of doubting it since Salt Lake City has requested a move back to Orange. So anyone like to input?
And I did talk, Mr. Chairman, I did talk with our AV folks. I think there's another conflict on that day, but they thought they could handle this meeting at the same time in December because it was shorter notice.
Is it? Are we talking having probably the virtual meeting again?
Well, that's up to you all. But right now we are under yellow with COVID. I do know that the mayor of Salt Lake City has asked to move back to orange, and so that's where we are. Yeah, that's where it's at right now.
Yeah, I personally think if we can keep it on the same date we've got and do it virtually, I realistically, in my mind, having seen yesterday or day before when Salt Lake Mayor made the request, I don't think we have any choice. We could switch days, yes, but if we have it virtually, as long as the AG's office is okay with it and we've got our notice out, I would prefer to just keep it where it's at personally.
Does Rodizio deliver?
Probably not to Blanding.
Oh, man.
You don't think DoorDash goes to Blanding? Maybe DoorDash does.
Mr. Chair, do the staff have a preference over the time? So we've been doing the 10 a.m. meeting, 10 and 1 meetings. In regular time, sometimes we would do early, get our meetings all done in the morning chunk or get all our meetings all done in the afternoon chunk. I'm not sure that I even have a preference, but do you all have some clear preference around that?
Mr. Chairman, it's really up to your prerogative. We've done both. It depends. It really just depends on the agenda and how many things that we have. If we get too long of an agenda, it's hard to get through both the discussion and the briefing as well as a long board meeting. Now, remember in December, we will have an NRCS water supply report. We chose not to do that this time. But, you know, it just depends on the agenda. And sometimes we've scheduled those earlier in the morning to try to get them through in the day. Typically, our December meeting is one of those times when we started earlier and finished up in the morning in order to do the holiday celebration. So,
I mean, I think I kind of like the morning, but I'm good with.
And I personally am good with whatever we want to do. My observation has been that these virtual meetings just take longer.
Yeah.
You know, with our roll call votes and with all of that, it just takes longer. Just the same content at a minimum is going to take us a half hour longer, has been my observation. And if we get loaded up on a big agenda, I mean, we're into this one almost an hour and a half already, and we're you know, it just takes longer. If we were to start one in the morning, I'm afraid we would either have to go through lunch or begin at 8 o'clock or something, which is fine by me too. I'm okay with whatever.
and Mr. Chairman, we're doing things on the fly really quick right here. The AV folks just texted me a picture of a screenshot. And so thanks to Carmen and Paul and whoever else is doing, I think it was Carmen that texted, either date, the 5th or the 7th, looks like it is open in May. There are some proposed board meetings on the April 28th and 29th. So those are off, moving it back that far. So no. So yes, they do not have a conflict on May 5th, 6th, or 7th. So if any of you want to propose that, we can keep those in the potential dates. I mean, again, this is doing it on the fly, so we'd have to finalize that in December. So
yeah, could we put a placeholder in on one of those dates?
We'd be more than happy to do the wish of the board.
Board members, sounds like May 6th is out, possibly because of Kyle's conflict. Does Wednesday the 5th or Friday the 7th? What are your feelings, board members, on Wednesday or Friday?
I would prefer Wednesday, personally.
Wednesday's better than Friday.
I'm good either way.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm good either way, but I'd go with Wednesday.
Okay, Randy. What were your thoughts, Randy?
It doesn't matter.
Okay. I would go with Wednesday personally myself.
Again, Blain, Mr. Chairman, just, you know, I appreciate the consideration there. I just know that that's been a conflict for me in the past, and I appreciate that consideration of changing the date so that I don't have the conflict. I feel it's important that we have board representation on those community impact board meetings as well. So I appreciate that consideration.
It sounds to me like the consensus, Director Todd, can you put a placeholder in for Wednesday, May 5th?
We will do that. We will do that. And that happens to be, if we have a in-person meeting at Cinco de Mayo, and we'll have a Spanish-Mexican lunch for you.
There we go. That'd be good. Okay, let's put a placeholder in on the 5th then, and then back to our earlier discussion we just had. It sounds like the December meeting is still, what we didn't resolve was, do we want to have it in the morning and try to get everything done by noon or 12:30 or something, or do we want to split them?
Typically, the board meeting in December has been all in the morning, but we'll do it however you'd like us to do.
Juliet's already given her input that it'd be nice to have it in the morning.
Yeah.
Wayne, what are your thoughts?
whenever possible, I like to get in and get things started and done as early as I can.
Okay, Charles?
I'm good either way, split or early.
Okay, Kyle?
I'm good to go early as well.
Okay, Norm?
Whatever is easy for anybody is fine with me. I'm just here.
Randy?
Morning works good.
Okay, Jim?
Morning.
So it sounds like the consensus is a lot of flexibility, but morning probably works better. So we would need to get in and get going probably at 8 o'clock on the briefing and probably 10 o'clock on the board.
That is fine. We'll look at the agenda and see what times it needs to start. You know, if we have a big agenda, Juliet, it might be 6:30 a.m. But yeah, just kidding. Sorry.
Hey, I'm okay as long as it's virtual, you know.
There you go.
Well,
anytime's good.
What are you waiting till that late? Do it at 5 if you want to get it done.
There we go. There we go.
Yeah,
It's
but we
all
don't
late.
want any pajamas.
No. It's all late to me in the sense that I get up at 3:30 every morning. I'm out beginning work out to my office here at 4:45 every morning. And so it's all the same to me.
Thank you. We will try to get it done in the morning. I do not want to see Wayne in his pink fuzzy slippers. So thank you.
Okay. And so that will be the main board meeting other than the closed session. And we need to talk about the closed session for just a minute. As all of you are aware, going through the ongoing training that we have on the public closed meeting requirements, public meeting requirements. In order to have a closed meeting, there are certain requirements that have to be met. And I'm going to just go through a few of these. One requirement is that a closed meeting may be held for strategy sessions to discuss the purchase, exchange, or lease of real property is one condition. And that's what we're doing today. It needs to be put in the public notice, and it was. In our public notice, it says that our closed meeting will be a strategy session to discuss the purchase, exchange, or lease of real property, and to possibly disclose the appraisal and prevent the public body from completing the transaction on the best possible terms. We have to do it in accordance with the statutes. In order for us to do it, and we will meet all of those requirements that need to be met, we have to have our main meeting closed. We have to go into a closed meeting thing. In order to do that, we have to have a quorum of the board present, which we have right now, where every board member's here. We have to have a motion, a second, and a vote on going into a closed meeting. And it requires a 2/3 majority of the quorum of board members in order to go into the meeting. And so I'll have to announce, we'll have to have a motion on that, a second, a vote, and then by roll call, and 2/3 majority will put us in the closed meeting. Have to note the time, the date, all of that information that we are going into a closed session, closed meeting, at which time you'll need to, and several I understand had a little training yesterday on how to do this. It's a completely separate link for a meeting on our Google Meetings. So you'll need to keep this meeting that we're in right now, and our board meeting will be the same link we're on right now. You'll need to keep it open, but you will need to mute your voice, and you'll need to mute your video, turn your video off, and then go into the other meeting at that point, at which time we'll have to go through, open that meeting up and that type of thing. We cannot take any votes or take any action on anything in that meeting. When we end the closed meeting, then we come back into the main meeting and note the date, the time, and all that, and note that we took no action on anything, and then go back into our regular meeting. So those are kind of the logistical steps. We've had these before. We haven't had very many of them in my experience on this board, but we've had a few. This will be the first one that I've ever been involved on a virtual basis, and we will have our closed meeting link. And so are there any discussions or any questions logistically or procedurally on any of this matter? Or Marisa or Todd or Shalane, do any of you have any additional input you'd like to give on this?
Mr.
I just
Chairman,
want to,
Go ahead,
I know
Marisa.
we, oh, sorry. I know we can get, I have found out that you can be on 2 Google Meet meetings at the same time. My concern is we're going to be in a closed meeting, but your laptop, phone, microphone works for both meetings. So we've got to make sure if you're not going to log off the public board meeting, we've got to make sure the sound is not going through to it. And I don't know if Carmen or Paul want to chime in on that.
Well, and this is, I wanted to say that, yes, they have said they will actually change what they're broadcasting. So they won't be broadcasting. If anyone's sitting there, they'll just be sitting there. But I think that's why Blain said everyone needs to make sure before they leave this link, mute your audio, mute your video, and then go over to the other meeting.
And
But I think that what I understood, Shalane, is Marisa said if you have one open and the other, if you unmute it, it unmutes it on both.
No, I don't think it does that.
Okay,
just
all right.
got to make sure you've muted, but it sounds like Paul and Carmen are basically going to mute all of us.
Okay.
On
Hey, Paul.
open board
Looks
meeting.
like Paul's here, so let's ask Paul.
If I could hop in and participate. For those that will be joined into the board meeting at the time, we will maintain that feed to YouTube of time-lapse videos showing a majestic cloud scene and time of day. We'll keep that link live. However, we will physically disconnect any of the board members and those participating in the private discussion from the originating room, which is this virtual room we're in right now, to ensure the privacy. Okay, I am getting message that I've lost a network connection.
We can still hear you,
Still hear you, Paul.
Okay, sorry, we're still working with our technology folks to harden the network conditions. But yeah, when Mr. Chairman, when you come to that point in the meeting where you ask the board to vote and go into private discussions, we will help ensure that all of those participants have left the public gathering and have entered into the private discussion chambers. So at the conclusion of that private discussion, we will also assist with Marisa getting everyone back into the public meeting and continuing with the public's business at that time. So any time during the process, we're thrilled to help, but we do need to ask everyone to leave the one. And
Paul, you cut off right there at the end?
We just lost Paul. We just lost Paul. So I think that works.
Yeah, he said they'll make sure. He will make sure that everyone gets from one to the other and back. So
okay,
the AV team will be paying attention. And I just wanted to clarify that we've also worked out there will be a recording made of the private session. It is a protected record. So it will not be a grammable recording. It will not be contained in the other board meeting recordings. And I can send this to Blain if necessary. It sounds like he's got most of the information, but I did verify the recording of a closed meeting shall include the date, time, and place of the meeting, the names of members present and absent, and the names of all others present, which the only others that will be present are executive staff, Marisa, and myself. No other staff members have been invited. Kim Wells, if she,
Kim Wells, yeah,
our PIO, she will be present if she chooses to be.
So thank you for that update. I will also ask Mr. Chairman if it is all right. We have Marty Bushman on here, and he is our attorney, and he will make sure that we are following those rules. If not, he will straighten us out, or I will ask him to straighten us out.
That would be very much appreciated. We want to do this correctly, and for me anyway, this is new territory doing it virtually. So we want to make sure that we cross all of our I's, dot all of our T's, and that we do this according to statutes. So,
and I'm glad to hear that, Todd, because yesterday when we discussed it a little bit after our practice meeting, I said, please, if I start messing up, Shalane, just shut me down, help me remember that I'm, what I'm supposed to be talking about, not talking about. So I'm glad to hear that. And if Marty and Kim need the links, Shalane can get those to you, the link.
Now, one question I have for Marty, if he's on here right now, would be, we are supposed to make sure we do not take action on any items. But to go into that meeting, we have to have a motion and a vote of 2/3 of the quorum that's present to go into closed session. Todd and I were visiting earlier. Both of us have the assumption that we also have to have a motion and a second and a vote to come out of closed session. Is that correct? And if it is, then could that be interpreted that we took action on something? The action we took was coming out of a closed meeting. That's the only action. I don't think that's a problem, but is that according to protocol, Mark?
Yeah, I'm not aware of anything in the Open and Public Meetings Act that would require you to take a vote to come out of closed session. If that was something you felt you wanted to do, I think that would be entirely appropriate. The only thing we can't vote on, given that the exception that we're doing this closed meeting under is dealing with real estate transactions and so forth, any contract that comes out of that has to be voted on in a public meeting. It's just the strategy sessions that can be closed. And I think that's where we're getting the no vote can be taken type information.
And we are not looking for any kind of action on a contract or anything like that. This is updating the board so they know what transactions we are working on, so that they're aware of where the money is, that they have, the money might go for when they, that they have committed to this.
And that's, so voting to come out of the closed session, I don't see is going to be any problem at all if that's what the board would like to do.
I personally think that would be appropriate where we vote to go in.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
When I was mayor and we would go into a closed session, to come out of that closed session, we would have a motion and vote to go back into open session.
So it sounds like there's a precedence there. So let's plan on doing it that way then.
And I am actually reading the code right now, unless I'm reading the wrong, and a majority of the members present vote to approve closing the, oh, sorry. No, that's to close the.
That's to close it. It doesn't say anything that I found on coming out, but Todd and I discussed, and we both, it sounded like Marty and Wayne agree that we just as well have a meeting to vote and motion to come out.
Well, it's a motion to go back into the open session. So.
Right.
Yeah, Blain, if I might interject.
Pardon?
What's that?
Blain, if I might interject.
Please.
My understanding is that motion would be made in the open meeting, a regular board meeting to reconvene the board meeting. Is that right, Wayne?
Yes. It's just a motion to go back into open session again.
Right, and that's in the minutes of the regular board meeting.
We open the meeting, we close it to go into closed session, then we have to go back into that open meeting again.
But that's from the regular board meeting, I believe.
Yes.
Okay, it sounds like we're on the same page. Any further clarifications or discussion on that we need to take? Okay, going back to our briefing agenda then. We are now done with items 1 and 2. Now let's go to items 3, information for the board. And we already covered the one thing, the calendar for next year. One other additional item that I wanted to go over, tour for next year. Which of those dates would we propose that there might be a tour, and which board member is willing to do the tour? And as I recall, Norm put his off and Jim stepped up, and Jim had his tour this morning. So Norm, is it your turn, or who's going to do it next year?
Well, I have the same problems I've always had, time and distance.
Time and distance.
Whatever anybody wants to do, fine with me. I don't know if we've got motel rooms available down here.
I'll just go stay with my daughter and son-in-law.
Yeah, there you go.
We can bring our campers down.
Yeah, I've got a daughter that lives down there in Blanding and her little family. So
I dare say if this COVID stuff's over by then, I bet all of us will want to get as far away as we can for a while.
What about it? Do any other board members have a burning desire to leapfrog Norm like Jim did this year?
We'll be glad to go for it, whatever you want.
Mr. Chairman, that was pretty unanimous. I didn't hear a whole lot stepping up. We'll work with Norm to try to find tie up some campsites or hotel rooms in that area. So
okay, thank
We'll
you.
figure it out.
We'll get it figured out, whether it's June, July, or June, August, September, whatever, May, whatever.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, at this stage of the game, information to the board. Director Adams, would you you and your staff present to us what additional information beyond what we've discussed you would like to have us?
Absolutely, and I've asked Joel to give a quick update on the status of funds. Hopefully, Kyle, that'll answer some of your questions that you had before also.
Do you think it would be helpful if I tried to share the screen so we can all look at the status of funds? I know you all have it in your board folders. Candace gave me a thumbs up. Mr. Chairman, do you think it'd be helpful if I tried to share a screen so we can all see the status of funds?
Yes, that would be helpful to me. I might note too that it is 11:50. Our regular meeting starts in an hour and 10 minutes. So if we can kind of move along a little too.
Sure. I will move things quickly here. Okay. Hopefully you'll be seeing my screen. Is that correct? I'm not hearing anything now.
Got it.
Okay.
We can see it.
Very good.
Great. The status of funds, let's quickly go over the balances. In the revolving construction fund, up in the top right corner, you can see that funds available for projects this year is about $11.5 million. Scrolling down, you can see through the projects that were contracted, the projects committed and authorized, and that if all of those move forward as planned, it would use up essentially the money available in the revolving construction fund. It does show a little bit of a overspend there, but that usually works itself out just based on the timing of the projects. We show them here as if it all were to go out, but they all go out on their own time frame, and additional repayments come in, and it all tends to work out. Let's go down to the city's water loan fund. The balance there, or the funds available in the top right corner, 8.6 million. And we do have some funding available in this one. As you see, we have one project that's been closed, one that's committed, and one that's authorized, but that there is still about $5 million available. So we can entertain additional projects in the City Water Loan Fund. It is our slowest growing fund because it survives on repayments only and doesn't get any additional sales tax money. And then the largest fund is the Conservation and Development Fund. The balance, as you can see, at the beginning of the fiscal year was estimated to be $80 million. And we have a couple of projects closed so far this fiscal year, 5 projects committed. One of those is the big American Fork City one you see at the top of the list there, for $22 million. As those go forward, that would leave a balance of about $46 million. And then we have this list of projects that have been authorized, and some of these are moving forward as planned, and some of these have been authorized but have not yet moved to committal. And one of those would be the Uinta Water Conservancy District that was committed, or authorized, I should say, to enclose the Steinecker Service Canal for $36 million. And that money is, at this point, is kind of waiting to be phased in as it's needed, but is not haven't been to use yet. And so when you see the negative balance at the bottom, part of that is because some of these projects we know are on the books but aren't necessarily moving forward. And so when we look at that, we do have quite a bit of money available to handle additional projects. So like this one that we discussed today, the Provo City, for an additional 10 million. And then one other thing I'd like to mention to the board is when the board did the recapitalization of its funds to cover the enclosure of the Provo Reservoir Canal, the Murdoch Canal enclosure project, the board essentially pledged the repayments for several projects. Instead of those repayments coming back into the board funds, those would go to pay off projects, to pay off the recapitalization payment, essentially. And those payments are scheduled to end 2022. And so one thing that gives us hope is knowing that we're on the cusp here of paying off that recap bond that the board entered into, and then those repayments from projects would redivert and come back into the board's funds to continue to go out. And so we've got that's just on the horizon that should also provide additional funds coming in. So as Director Adams said before, we don't foresee any shortfall. We actually welcome some of these larger projects to come in and help us put these funds to good use. So that's the Stats of Funds report.
Mr. Chairman, this is Kyle. Would there be an additional column put on there that would indicate the date that was approved? For example, the one that Joel was referring to there, the Uinta Basin, $36 million. How long has that been on the books type situation? And would that be helpful to just have that information there to know when those projects were initially approved and put forward?
That is a good suggestion, and yes, I think that is something that we could do.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may ask a quick question. This is Todd Stonley.
Please.
It's related to what Kyle was asking. Several of those projects are many years old, and I believe the board has a policy that if a project's authorized and it doesn't go to committal within a certain amount of time, that it would need to come back to the board to be reauthorized. Some of those on there may need to do that and could probably be dropped off that authorized list and brought back again if they needed to be reauthorized.
Or at least move to the next page where additional future funding needs are out there, or assuming that they still want to continue. Because if you go over the page, I don't believe Joel showed that, we have another $160 million worth of projects that would be funded in some sort of way. So
That
if
would probably be helpful.
Okay, and if I could add just a couple things too, to answer the Uinta question, and we can plan to put this on future status of funds reports, but the Uinta project was actually authorized in 2013. So yeah, it's been 7 years since they were authorized, and it's not moved forward. But I also wanted to note part of the concern about these larger projects. I just wanted to let you all know, I just received notice yesterday from Zions Bank concerning the Provo Canal Enclosure Project. Provo River Water Users Association is actually planning to pay off their bond to you. They're issuing new bonds and will be paying you off. And what they'll be paying is $22 million. So you will have additional funds available. So that we weren't planning on.
Wow.
So yeah, we kind of hope we get some more projects coming in to take that money back out. But just so you're aware.
Okay.
Thank you. Director Adams, go to the next report. That was a good report. Thank you, Joel. And Charles, could you mute your mic until, please?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I will just give you a quick update on several different things, and then I've got to turn the mic over to Randy Staker for one last thing. So we have been working on a state water plan update. As you're well aware, we've made a couple presentations. We have a draft document that's ready that is going through one last review by our department folks, our executive director, and that's where it's at right now. It's been a little bit delayed. We apologize for that, but we want to make sure it's good and right and as we move on. So that's the status on the state water plan. I talked a little bit about Marty Bushman being on this call. We're glad to have him. Marty is now assigned to Water Resources and will be spending most of his Attorney General time helping us, working with us on Colorado River matters, Bear River matters, interstate stream issues, internal issues, anything else that we need the Attorney General's opinion on. That will be in addition to Norm Johnson, the other Norm Johnson, the one that's not as famous as the one that's on our board. There you go. That helps us with Colorado River issues in the Attorney General's office. As it becomes October, November, December, being the legislative liaison and from years gone past, we are starting to watch bills and meetings come up, and Candace has spent a fair amount of time in herding cats on water loss accounting, water banking, water in general. And so we will continue to work on those things. There will be a water efficiency bill that is the new name for water loss accounting that will be that we've been working on. We believe that it will have an opportunity to see a committee hearing and that. So we are still waiting to hear back from legislative leadership, as well as the Governor's Office of Management and Budget on potential building blocks. I think we told you last time we put in a building block for some additional dam safety authorizations. We do not know if that will be allowed this year, so we'll continue to watch that. It's not a great legislative year to be looking at new budget issues. That is the two or three things that I have. We'll give a more detailed report on some other director stuff in the board meeting. Randy, you wanted to, unless there's any other questions, Mr. Chairman, I'd ask Randy Staker to give a quick update for you.
Thanks, Todd. I just wanted to remind you to get any travel related expenses in. Just want to make sure you get paid for your time and any mileage or anything else that you might need to be reimbursed for. I sent you some blank forms a couple months ago. If you still have those, just go ahead and use them. If you need me to send them out again, just let me know and I can send those to you again. But just wanted to remind you to get your travel expenses in. Thank you.
And Mr. Chair.
Randy, have you got your responses ready for today?
Yes, I do.
Back to the reimbursements, we're trying to get those processed quicker, faster, better. So if you'll get them to us within 30 to 40 days, we can get them processed. If not, it takes a little bit more effort to do that. So please get them into us as soon as you can. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything, other items that we need to go over in our briefing meeting this morning?
Mr. Chairman, this is Charles Holmgren. I just had a wonderment on propositions on the ballot this fall. Is there any opinion on that one water issue that is on the ballot that anybody has?
The one on cities and their boundaries and.
Yes.
Anybody want to speak up?
Well, Todd sent me the link to the, like a little bit of a description on the, I don't even know where that is, on like the voter explanation or something that was helpful. But yeah, that's one that I still am trying to wrap my head around.
Do I toss a coin?
What it really means. I know. Yeah, that's gonna, it seems very straightforward, but
Okay.
those are the ones you worry about.
Yes, indeed. Especially
For the Constitution too. I mean, honestly, that's kind of where I'm still trying to kind of research it myself, but any constitutional change, I'm always, you know, a little more skeptical of.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other things that want to discuss in our briefing meeting this morning? Well, appreciate each of you, board members, staff members. A lot of things going on. There's been a lot of behind the scenes things going on in the last while. Change applications, lots of different actions and things like that. Was anybody going to give an update on the change application hearing or anything, Director Adams? Or?
Yeah, we actually have the hearing with water rights coming up on the water right change. That is on, let's see, October 21st in the afternoon. It will be a virtual meeting. It will be limited in those that can be attendees. I think they're limiting it to 2 from each entity. So that would be Water Resources. And then I think there were 6 or 7 protestants that will be limited to that. And there'll be an open link and we can get that information out to the board members if you would like to be on and listen.
Okay.
Joel, do you want to add anything else to that?
Yeah, I was going to give a little update on that in the board meeting, but that's correct. Those are the rules.
Okay. Okay, good. Well, our next meeting, the board meeting starts in just under an hour at 1 o'clock. If you can log into that a little bit earlier and make sure that we can get through whatever technical difficulties we might have into that. With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Mr. Chairman, everyone
Yes.
can just stay in this room and not log out.
Right. You can
And that
stay.
will help.
That would help facilitate it for sure. Close this meeting, board members. Is anyone willing to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I so move.
Okay, Kyle made a motion that we adjourn this meeting. Do I have a second?
I'll second that. This is Norman.
And Norm seconded the motion. And when we get into our main board meeting again with our protocol, make sure we identify ourselves so that Lindsay can get it on the minutes and that. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Okay, let's take a roll call vote on the motion to adjourn this meeting. Bear River, Charles.
Mr. Chairman, aye.
Weber River, Kyle.
Aye.
Salt Lake, Juliet.
Aye.
Provo River, Wayne.
Aye.
Green River, Randy.
Aye.
Upper Colorado, Norman.
Aye.
Lower Colorado River, Jim.
Yes.
Okay, motion stands adjourned. It is 12:07 on October 8th. Thank you, everyone.